Can you hear me?
Greetings, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us for this insects data mobilization training course. While the title says insects data mobilization training course, the information still applies for non-insect data as long as it's biodiversity data, primary biodiversity data. So in the audience, I think we have the people who signed up for the course to contribute data, who are also in the WhatsApp group where we've done introductions. And then we have others joining us just from those interested in entomology and those that have been invited through social media. So welcome, my name is Dorothy Madamba, and I work at the Natural History Museum. I am going to, without further ado, dive into my presentation. And can I ask that those who did not introduce themselves earlier, can you just type in the comment section who you are and where you're from? My presentation takes 18 minutes tops, and then we will leave time for questions and answers. Right, can someone confirm that you can see my screen?
Hi, Dorothy, I can see your screen.
I see it now.
Thank you. All right, so as I've already said, I'm Dorothy Madamba, Curator of Entomology at the Natural History Museum, and I'll be taking us through the thing to provoke interest and to start the conversation. So biodiversity data comes from different sources and origins, and we should be able to identify the type of data after this, and also how to capture the relevant information or the standards that are there, and also a little bit about the existing tools and softwares that help with the biodiversity data capture. So in this section, I'm going to just talk about the first two sources of data and also the types of data that are supported by GBIF. So insect data comes from different places, and sometimes it's very complex and sometimes simple. You can get it from collections or records, like in the museum specimen, or you can get it from scientific literature or just technical literature. And you can, when it comes to literature, it can either be like a master thesis or a PhD thesis or something that has not been published or something that has been published. You can find a lot of data. Then it can also come from fieldwork and research. And I think most of us, our team, we introduced ourselves as researchers. So as you're doing your work, you accumulate a lot of biodiversity data. And so it can be from EIA reports, from surveys, from citizen science logs, such as iNaturalist, or even from field notes. So GBIF is Global Biodiversity Information Facility. If you've gone through the introductory link, you already know about that. It summarizes most of these types of data into just 4 types of data sets with templates that we provide. So the types of data sets that are recognized include species checklists, occurrence-only data, sampling event data, and dataset metadata. I shall go through these to explain. So species checklists, most of us have encountered them. They have the species or higher taxa and an area where that species occurs. So that's the two things that you only need on an on-species checklist. And examples are when you say there's a checklist of insects of Matoba National Park or taxon. I think this applies a lot to people working in parks. You need a lot of checklists. You need a lot of you need to know what species are where. And then taxon list of reference is another example. Butterflies of Zimbabwe can be an example, or edible insects of Zimbabwe can be an example. Red list, we are familiar with that one, where you specify according to a theme. Then occurrence only data is the second type of data set, and it has three components: where the species, what species it is, where it was found, and what date it was. And then also sampling event data would then include more information: the species, where it was, the time, the space, as well as the sampling effort. So in terms of sampling effort for species, sampling event data, you are talking of records, and also the sampling protocol. Then the fourth type of data is descriptive data about data sets. It's also known as resource data sets. You know, when you don't actually give out what the information is, but you describe it and facets of it as well. So there are 12 examples that are there on GBIF, and you will get this PDF. I outlined those 12 examples of what the metadata about data is described as. So, for example, geographic coverage, you're now talking about what area your data covers. It's not the actual data, but you're describing your data using other data. And this is the second set of 6, where you'll still be describing the methods that you use to collect your data and so on and so forth. So in this second section about biodiversity, I'll be talking about standards and also the existing software or tools. You find that if you give everyone a set of an insect specimen, for example, and we ask each person to capture that information in the label into an Excel spreadsheet, they will come up with various types of field names and formats of the table because of different backgrounds. But it is important to standardize these fields so that we're able to communicate. If you send me your table, I should still know that it's the same specimen that could capture information on. So why are standards important? Standards they offer a consistent way of capturing data at a global scale, and they allow for easier networking and exchange of information with every researcher. So some of the commonly used standards by GBIF, and there's Darwin Core Standards, and there's ecological metadata language, and there's also biological collection access service, BioCase. So these differ depending on what it is you are databasing. For example, ecological metadata language focuses mainly on metadata. Biodiversity Information Standards Organization, which is the one that regulates these standards of biodiversity information. And it's important for us to visit that website and find out more, especially about the standard that we use and the software that we use. So for GBIF, the standard that is commonly used, that most of the data is in, is Darwin Core Standard, the Darwin Core format. The third section of my presentation focuses on biodiversity data capture software and tools. And there are so many online spaces where you can, facilities where insect data or biodiversity data in general is stored. I've just put in a few in VertNet, which is localized to the USA. iDigBio, also localized to the USA. Species Link, which is more accessible, I think, across Europe as well. Then iNaturalist, which is accessible globally. Then GBIF, also accessible globally. So for the purposes of this training, we'll focus on GBIF. So GBIF offers a variety of already made templates of how to capture certain types of data according to the different formats of data or classes of data sets that are recognized by GBIF. So we have 3 classes or formats of data that I'm going to focus on. I'm going to leave out metadata because for this training, we are not focusing on capturing metadata only data. will capture metadata, but with other supporting primary biodiversity data. So Excel spreadsheets are the standard way of capturing when you're capturing biodiversity data on 4GB. But you can also do other types of capturing where you scan and then it goes through optical recognition software and then it translates still into an Excel spreadsheet, which you can then work on and submit. That's one other method. So back to Darwin Core Standards. There are cores and extensions on that spreadsheet. These are just spreadsheets that gives you the core information and extensions to that information that are already templates that are offered by GBIF. So the three types, like I said, would be the occurrence core, which is for capturing occurrence data.